So, growing up in a British northern country of Lancashire, Nadeem's creativity was nurtured and celebrated from an early age. This encouragement led him to pursue his artistic journey at the Cumbria Institute of Art and Design. With a deep passion for fine art, Nadeem honed his skills in drawing, painting, and sketching, laying a strong foundation for his creative expression. So, Nadeem,
Yeah.
the floor is yours. Tell us a little about yourself. I know I touched on some of like how you started off with art,
Yeah.
and tell us what you're working on right now. Let's start with
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah. So at the moment, it's been a bit of a journey. Well, the actual title of what I'm working as contemporary abstract expressionist painting. That's what it is.
Okay.
So basically, it's looking at landscape. So I'm based in Lancashire. We've got the countryside, the open spaces. We've got the Lake District, which is on our doorstep. So I go for a lot of walks. I look at the clouds, the majesty of them. That evokes kind of strong energy, positive, strong energy. And what I try to do on my canvases is not an exact depiction of them. It's more of a emotional charge within the canvas.
Right.
So when you're looking at my paintings, they're kind of it's like an ethereal, visceral kind of effect that you kind of get. And that's what I'm after. That's what I'm doing. That's the series that I'm working on at the moment.
I love that. And I think like looking at some of your drawings, and I will post a link in the video description,
Sure.
guys, just so you can see Nadeem's artwork. Today, I just thought, let me Google Nadeem.
Yeah.
I found this website, and obviously there's other artists on there, but you have 58 artworks on there. And I definitely will urge people to look at this. And I was just like breathless just looking at these pieces. I mean, one of them, I actually stared at it for 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I need to start preparing for this podcast because it's one of those things, with artwork. One thing I like about it is you just literally are embellished with it. You're thrown into it.
Yeah.
And have you noticed, like you go to a museum, you could ask three people about one piece of artwork,
Sure.
they'll give you three different visions of it,
Yeah.
right? So I
Absolutely.
want I want to ask you, has anyone ever given you, just like I gave you that bit of insight of how I felt
Yeah.
with the red painting, for instance?
Yeah.
Has anyone given you anything like that? And what did they say about one of
Yeah.
the?
So that's a really good point. So I think with abstract work specifically, it's very subjective. One person can can derive something from it. Another person can, get something completely different out of it. And that's the beauty of abstract. I think for me personally, I just do what I need to do. I don't have control over what anybody thinks of it. With all due respect, I'm not really interested in what other people think of it.
Understood.
I got to do it for myself. I do it and I throw it out there, and some people like it and some people dislike it, and that's fine. Again, I don't have any control over that. But I think what's important is that I create. With the red painting, I like that one as well. So there's been variations of it, and it's quite interesting. So I'm just a listener. I sit on the fence and I just listen to all the comments. Some are quite amusing, some are quite deep as well. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, I haven't said a sentence here. You've just generated all of that.
I wanted to ask you, like, is there any piece of work that you worked on that, let's say you felt like you weren't in the present moment. You were either time traveling or not in that moment. Was it,
Yeah.
just I just want to feel something that you must have felt on a
Sure.
piece of work where you thought, I don't feel like I'm here right now. Have you
Yeah.
ever felt that?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's a very meditative state when you're painting. Usually, I'll tell you the routine that I do. At the moment, I'm a carer for my parents. I work from home. I'm a teacher, so I work online. When I finish online, I check on my parents if they're okay. So all of that, I have kind of responsibilities and duties. So once that's over, then the evening time is usually mine to create work and get all that latent energy out and put it onto the canvas. I usually listen to, and I don't know whether you've checked it out, it's BBC Sounds on Radio 3. And they have these kind of very transient eclectic sounds,
Oh,
and they're very surreal. And I just have that on in the background, and then after about I start working on the canvas, and then about after 10, 15 minutes, I go into this state where honestly, Farouk, nothing exists. Yeah. I don't exist. The room doesn't exist. The day doesn't exist. I'm completely, if you will, in the moment. And I think this the essence of meditation is being in the
yeah,
present now. So there's no future, there's no past, it's just the now. And that state is, I think that's the reason why I carry on painting. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And honestly, like whenever I see these street painters, sometimes I know you've done a bit of that. I remember you doing some videos on it. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it just when you're sat with them, you know that okay, this person has so much focus on this piece of work
Mhm.
that you could nudge them and even though they might be there for you, but they're in there. They're in that picture. And that's what I
Absolutely.
love about art, It's not just throwing stuff randomly on a canvas.
Yeah.
It's it's a statement, right? It's
It
almost a
is.
statement.
It is. Yeah.
Right. I wanted to talk about gratitude today,
Sure.
and especially with how the world is today. We've seen a lot of unjust things that are going on around the world, and I just wanted to kind of make sense of it all. And I feel like whenever we do these different things, so like, going for walks, like you go for the nature trails and stuff like that, and being more connected with earth, that gives us also a sense of gratitude, right? Where we have safety, we have security, we have a home.
Sure.
And it's just amazing. Just going to the simplest of things as me picking up this clean glass of water.
Sure.
We take things for granted, right?
Yes.
Countries, a lot of people don't have that. So I wanted to share this with you. And
Yeah.
this is from the Quran, and it's from chapter 14, verse number 7. And Allah says, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you in favor. So just, thinking of that. And also, we're told that if you are grateful, Allah will give you more,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So it's like, okay, well, someone's probably going to say more of what? Well, more of the things that are beneficial to you,
Yeah.
and more of the things that are good for you, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about this very subject, being grateful, like the work that you do as well, and just, tying that into just life in general.
Mm.
What are the three things that you are most grateful for today?
Wow. So, I mean, right. So just kind of digressing and then coming back to the question of the
Sure.
three things that I'm grateful for. Yeah, so I think whilst you were saying that, there was what I recollected, there was a study done in America,
Yeah.
with a cohort of kind of a group of individuals that were going through some sort of depressive state. Yeah.
Right.
And what they did was kind of run a course where they had to be grateful for
Mm.
certain things within life. So it could be like, they wake up or they stand up. Yeah. Or, they drink water because some people can't do that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then what they found within the study is over time, when they were grateful, the depressive state decreased.
Wow.
Yeah. So much so that it kind of eliminated. So yeah, gratitude for anything. You picked up that glass of water and everything, taking it to the mouth, drinking it and everything. Again, Imam Ghazali was said lifting that and then taking to the mouth, drinking it, swallowing it, digesting it, and then passing it out.
Mm.
We don't even know how we do that. The previous conversation about that was where is God? Where does God exist? And Imam Ghazali said, we don't even know how we drink water and how we urinate it. Yeah. And you're asking where God is. Yeah. So it was that kind of level of gratitude that was there. So within myself as well, about 2019, kind of, 2020, I mean, I'll just delve a little, I won't go too much into it. So I went through a really low patch, so much so that I was bitter. and angry. I've never done that in my life, and I was faced with that. So I kind of rejected everything. I say, why is it me? And it's not fair, and all that cliche, the general cliche of things. And then I started saying, well, let me try being grateful.
Mm.
So then I was like, okay, well, I can see because I knew a few people, eyesight's very not very good. I can walk.
Yeah.
I know a few people who struggle to walk. I can eat and swallow because I know a few people, one of my friends who can't, who has carers to help them feed.
Mm.
So as I started doing being grateful,
Yeah.
I started lifting out of that deep, low mood. And I started, creating again. So
Wow.
yeah, I totally agree. Being grateful is the bedrock, the touchstone of a better place. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah,
yeah,
it's so true. When we wake up in the morning,
mm,
it's that awareness, like you said about the awareness of drinking water. We wake up, we're told that we're waking up from it's like a minor death. You may
sure.
not even wake up, right?
Mm,
So the fact that you woke up,
mm,
it's that in itself is a gift. The fact that you can go to prayer,
yeah,
just basically being grateful that you're able to talk to Allah and say, I'm grateful for this day. Whatever it brings, I'm grateful for it.
mm,
I think sometimes also it depends on how we perceive certain things in our life. So
mm,
just as much as Allah will put it into your life, he could also take it away.
absolutely.
And that in itself, and I'm sure you've learned and myself like throughout our life experiences that we've covered throughout our journey.
Yeah,
We've come such a long way, alhamdulillah.
absolutely. Yeah,
I think it's just that whenever it's taken away from you, that's something that's so precious, and then you're always wary that this item, this thing, whether
yeah,
it's a person, whether it's a materialistic piece or whatever, it's never mine. It was never
mm,
mine.
no,
So if it leaves,
mm,
that's when your real test of gratitude is. Like,
yeah,
okay, well, hang on. I blessed you when you were grateful and you were happy. Allah blessed us, right? But
mm,
when He took it away from us, where are our hearts with Allah when Allah takes something away from us?
yes,
That's the true test of faith,
absolutely.
don't you think?
Yeah, and then you think, what is actually ours?
Right?
Yeah, if you work backwards,
Yeah.
there's nothing really that's yours.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And then you kind of go into the metaphysical side of things. It's like, the soul,
Yeah.
possibly,
Yeah.
uh, you know. And then you go into realms of will.
Mm.
Do we have the power to dictate something,
Right.
or is it predestined? Yeah, and then something else comes in mind. Somebody asked, I think it was, don't quote me on this, it was probably Hazrat Ali or something. They said, what is free will?
Yeah.
Or it might be him or it might be somebody else. I'm not quite sure. Said, what is free will? And then he said, pick your right leg up. Yeah, so the person picked his right leg up
Yeah.
and he goes, pick your left leg up whilst your right leg is raised. And he goes, well, I can't do that because then I'll fall. And he
Yeah.
goes, that's predestination. So
Wow.
you have control over some things and
Right.
you don't have control over other things. So yeah, what is ours? Probably nothing. Not much anyway.
Yeah. Predestination is that's a topic in itself, isn't it? Like
Absolutely.
a lot of people talk about, I'm sure you've heard this where something happens and then they'll say, "Oh, it's Allah's will. This was meant to happen." But there's also, we're given the gift of du'a, right? And du'a, as in supplication,
Yeah.
it's one of the things that can change
Mm.
that. We've
Yes.
been told that, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned this to us,
Yeah.
that even though everything's written,
Yeah.
50,000 years ago, whatever, everything was written, when you're born, what kind of provision, wealth, etc.,
Mm.
when you're going to pass away, all these things. But there's something there that we've been given. And
Sure.
I feel like if we exercise that in the correct manner and ask Allah with sincere intention, we can have good things. But
Absolutely.
let's say if something doesn't work out, and then it's like, oh well, it was Allah's marzi, it was Allah's wish. But sometimes I feel like it's about action as well, right? So, like with gratitude, there's three things it mentions. There's gratitude of the heart, so recognizing that the blessing comes from Allah, right? There's a gratitude of the tongue, so verbally thanking Allah. And
Sure.
then the last one is the gratitude of action, so using the blessings in a way that pleases Allah.
Yeah.
So as long as we're doing that, it's an easy concept,
Yeah.
but we can't just sit here. So like for instance, if I'm thirsty, right, and that water's right there, I have to go to the water. I have
Yes.
to lift it up. So it's about action, right? So I wanted to
Absolutely.
ask you about that. Like what
Yeah.
have you ever had a situation where someone's like something maybe for yourself, something hasn't worked out, but you realized you had to get up and do something, and how did
Yeah.
that make you feel?
Your hands are the cutting edge of your thoughts. Yeah.
Right.
So, you have thoughts, put them into practice and to execute them.
Yeah.
That's when the act is completed.
Yeah.
Also, whilst you were saying that, I was thinking of there's an amazing Christian prayer as well,
Yeah.
and I remember one of my friends gave it to me on a little card, and it went something like, "God, give me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the humility to accept the things I can, and the
Mm.
courage to know the difference."
Ooh,
It went something like
that's
that.
deep.
So it's knowing what you can and what you can't change,
Right.
and the courage just to accept what it is as well.
Mm.
So yeah, absolutely. There's certain things. I think you gotta be humble
Yeah.
to know what you have control over
Right.
and what you don't. And there's a certain extent that you can go
Yeah.
to change things. But then, there's a bigger force than you. I
Right.
think one of the problems is that we feel we are in charge,
Right.
especially within this generation.
Yeah.
And that comes through like a narcissistic, egotistical kind of stance, yeah. But we're not really in charge of much.
No.
If you think, I mean, to a certain extent, we could probably do things. Funny story, I pulled my back yesterday,
Yeah.
and I pulled it, I pulled it whilst yanking up my handbrake. So, it's just you don't know. Within a
Yeah.
blink of an eye, everything changes.
It
Yeah.
does.
So we don't have much control over much things. Yeah.
No, you're right. And I think it does. Whenever things like that happen, it makes you just realize that like I exist, but everything that I do, there's something or someone is going to be impacted by it.
Mm,
And sometimes I may know, sometimes I may not know.
mm,
Like, going back to your artwork, I can guarantee you someone out there must have looked at some of your pieces consciously, subconsciously, it would have impacted them. I know it impacted me when I was staring at it for 20 minutes,
yeah.
but it what it did, I think with art, one thing I like about that is it's like a sweet escape
Mm,
from a reality. Sometimes we tend to do that with our minds, that inner voice, it creates these fake realities. And sometimes we get stuck in them because
yeah.
maybe that's a support mechanism for us, a defense
Yeah.
mechanism even for
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, let's say if you start on a piece of work, you're doing the brush strokes and everything, and suddenly some emotion that comes in that isn't welcome there. So how do you navigate through that? Let's say if unless you're doing that piece to escape from that. Do you ever do that? And have you ever come to that
Yeah. Yeah.
point?
I mean, there's certain times where it just doesn't go right.
Right.
Yeah. And you try everything. You're going on for like, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours.
Yeah.
And, there's no stroke that's kind of assimilating with the way you're feeling. Yeah. So, I mean, and then you kind of step away. You say, today's not my day. It's
Right.
it's not happening. Yeah. And then, funnily enough, you come the next day and you work on it for, I don't know, less than 10 minutes and it just becomes right.
Right.
You know what I mean? And, it's just this twist of faith.
Yeah.
And again, like you mentioned, like we were talking about, some marks are intentional
Yeah.
and, sometimes they work. Some marks that I make are unintentional and accidental,
Mm.
and they sometimes work better than the marks that are intended.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are the observer. You kind of you although you're painting, you got to know. I think what I find most difficult in my paintings is knowing when to leave a thing,
Right.
knowing when to carry on with the thing. And
Mm.
this is going back to the Christian prayer that I just mentioned, is
Right.
knowing when to, and that's a metaphor for life as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say,
It
you've
is.
got a relationship going on,
Yeah.
you're trying your best, it's not working. You've got to instinctively know when to step aside. You've got to
Yeah.
instinctively know when to keep going. I've learned that through painting
Yeah.
as well. I'm learning it more, and it's a good lesson to have. Yeah.
I think the battle of the ego as well is one thing. I'll give you an example. There's been, I would say, two instances over the past 3 months where I've been put into a situation and I've exercised the power of silence.
Mm.
And oh my word, that in itself, like when you don't react to something that doesn't need a reaction, so like this, the silence, and just putting yourself in that moment and saying, I'm grateful for being here.
Mm.
Whatever's going on in this space, I'm not going to let it, I'm not going to let it in. And that is so powerful. That's where a lot of the artists, for instance, they, like when you read up about them, they'll tell you that they've most of their best drawings or artwork is when they're going through hardships or when
Absolutely.
they've broken up from a relationship.
Yeah.
Even the songwriters, if you ask them,
Yeah.
they'll say, my best pieces of work was when I was going through an immense hardship in my life, you know? And that just speaks volumes, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, most creative works come through struggle. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if you've got everything and the life is fine and
yeah,
there's no kind of turmoil, the substance or the intensity with which you're producing, there's no depth to it. And yeah, intense works. You look at Francis Bacon, you look at Lucian Freud's work. They were going through their stuff.
mm,
When they were painting that, and you could feel it on the canvas. It just resonates that intensity. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, I agree with that. Yeah.
Right. Do you have any pieces of work with you by any chance?
I don't have at the moment. I should have. Yeah, I've just realized now that you've mentioned that I should have brought something.
It's
Uh,
okay. I'll do
yeah,
it. What I'll do is, if you don't
yeah,
mind, what I'll
yeah,
do, like at the end of the this segment, when I do the editing, I'm
yeah.
gonna just do a slideshow of some of your pieces. Is that okay? And
Brilliant. Good idea.
I'll go through some of them, and obviously I direct people to the website. Hey, who knows? Like whatever is gonna help. I like having these conversations because it just impacts me, it impacts the listeners.
The only thing I'd say is, anybody out there is, keep kind of being creative, making music, making art. Just try to let things out rather than keep them in.
Yeah.
Even if you practice, 5, 10 minutes of something,
Mhm.
be consistent with that, and eventually, that thing will grow. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And like I said, I appreciate your time and coming on here,
Well done,
sharing
man.
your insight, and definitely we'll look at your artwork on the end segments, inshallah.
Brilliant, brilliant, nice
All
one.
right, Jazakallah khair, Nadeem.
Thank you, man.
वतन बेश तो मादरे वतन तला हो गोवरे